AI made me a better 3D artist. Here's how. Most artists are terrified that AI will replace them. But what if I told you it actually made me a better 3D artist? Ways to use AI to level up your work instead of being replaced by it. What we will talk about? By the end of this video, you'll see how AI can be your secret weapon, not your competition. Real projects, real practical ways AI makes you way faster, more creative, and more valuable as an artist. Who am I? My name is Dwayne Elahie. I'm a CG Supervisor and been in the industry for 20 years plus, mentoring for 15 years plus, hundreds of different students. A lot of them are now in the industry, making a salary of over 70K. These are the studios I've been at: EA, Industrial Lights and Magic, ILM, Pixar, Disney. We haven't met yet, but you've met my work. You've seen the Netflix, The Witcher, James Cameron's Avatar, just to name a few, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. I was the rigging character CG Supervisor on that. Clyde with the Chance of Meatball franchise. You may have also seen these films and TV shows. Currently, K-pop Demon Hunters. A lot of the tools I built are still being used on that. On Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, I built them a lot. I was hired to do the facial rigging and pipeline engineering for the Clyde with the Chance of Meatballs. And I mentioned I was a CG character rigging supervisor for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. Netflix, The Witcher, Marvel projects like Iron Man, Secret Invasion, the MCU, James Cameron Avatar, The Hunger Games to name, and you can look it up the rest on IMDb to see the list of things I've worked on. Now, back to our topic, 3 ways that AI made me a better CG artist or 3D artist. 1, idea generation and concepting. AI helps rapidly brainstorm, design, and choosing design direction, color palettes, visual styles. Why? Because it cuts down on hours of trial and error. It freeing you to focus on execution. So you could try out a lot of different things, a lot of different iterations, and see the results you get. A lot of times in the past few decades, if we weren't doing it ourselves, we probably had to outsource it. And that takes a lot of time to send it to people. They send it back when they give it to you. Then you have to give some notes and you give it back, and it goes back and forth. That costs a lot of money as well. And all that is just to explore an idea to see which direction we want to go in. Now, with AI, at least we could generate a lot of ideas, and we're like, okay, we like this style, this direction. When we scope the project, we're able to do this amount of things, so we'll go that way. And this is usually done like in production. In pre-production, during a project, you're scoping out and seeing what you can't do, what resources you need to hire, or what tools you need to build or get installed in your pipeline, how long it will take to do it, and what you could consistently do for a while. And AI will help with that scoping of the project. Because when you get in production, you're not trying to figure any of this stuff out. You're just executing against a timeline to make sure you're delivering on time. Not including all the iterations you have to take due to feedback of the director, art direction, focus groups, or beta tests that you have to change, but the deadlines don't change. So AI will help with those iterations. The second thing that AI helped make a better 3D artist as well, especially in production, is the technical acceleration. AI tools automate repetitive tasks like retopology, like the retopology. So if you create a topology that you see something didn't work, you could automatically retopologize it to see if something works better. UV layout, UV unwrapping. Like I mentioned this in past videos. In the past, UV unwrapping, the tools were very limited. We just had like planar projection or cylindrical projection or box, and you had a lot of overlapping. Doing it by hand and untangling it and make sure there's no warping or stretching or overlaps. And then also making sure you're optimizing for the real estate and giving more real estate to areas that would need more UV space in terms of detail, because you're balancing, especially back then, low polygons or low density versus high. Now with AI tools, you can figure all that stuff automatically, and something that used to take days to weeks can now take seconds. And you can do different iterations, and also depends on your target of the project. With these tools, it makes that a lot faster. And this, again, is not really artistry. This is just technical hurdles that we have to get through to make the artistry. So again, the science is supporting the art here. Same thing with texture generation. We have, substance designer and making procedural textures so you don't, as you zoom in, you don't lose resolution. AI helps with that generation of that. And reference gathering. Again, when you start a project, you're trying to get as much references to see which direction you want to go in. AI will help with that, help generate ideas before you lock in and then bring the art to it. So it lets you spend more time on the high value creative parts of your workflow and helps you with the technical parts. The third thing that AI can make you a much better 3D artist is skill amplification. So AI points out weaknesses by generating variations you can study and learn from. Basically, you improve faster because you get instant feedback and also endless practice material. And this part I want to actually expand on, because AI allows you to explore things that you wouldn't normally do. And that we've been doing this and we've seen this in many different areas. AI highlighted it, but I'm going to show you an example where AI didn't highlight it, but you see in the industry. What normally happens is that, especially in an industry as young as computer graphics, when early 80s, 90s, when it started being used, I guess Jurassic Park was probably like one of the first movies for VFX to use it before there's a big shift for VFX of it. Before that, it was practical effects. But with that being said, it's young, right? It's being discovered. Tools are being created as you see them at SIGGRAPH every year, the new discovery, and then the papers that are released and that people implemented in their pipeline. But which is good. You learn from other people. But the downside of that is that when you see or when you're taught how something's done in a certain way, the next generation will be taught that without questioning it, right? In a lot of cases. So then you just do certain things in a certain way just because that's how it's done and don't really question it. And once in a while, you might come with someone or an artist who comes out with so left field, something completely different that challenges the norm. And then people are like, oh, this works. And then now people start exploring that, because before you wouldn't, because you're told that's not how you do it. And if you think about it, it's not really that's not how you do it. It's just that in the past, this was successfully done. So people just kept replicating it. And they're too afraid to deviate, especially in a production environment where you have a deadline, you have to deliver something. A lot of times, a lot of big productions are afraid to try something new with the fear of failure, right? So that's where being an artist comes in, because you're trying to bring something new. But a lot of times in production or commercial projects, you do things that work. With that being said, a lot of times that's why a lot of, let's say, movies might have a very similar script, or during one period, for example, vampire movies were very popular. So then you'll see for the next few years, there's vampire movies because that's the trend. That a lot of times trends is just following what's been done. So it's rare, but it happens where sometimes someone does, or artist does, or someone explores something completely different and it works. AI helps with that. And to give an example of this, so one of the famous examples is AI playing chess. You could read this paper published by Cornell University in 2023. You could look up the name of the paper here, or this website right here. And it's one of the more famous ones. It's known, AlphaZero, right? So by what year, like 2017, I think that's around the time. Well, during that time period, AI around 2015, 2016, 2017, that's where the AI technology or the methods have been around for a while, like since the 70s that we're using. We just didn't have the computation power and the big data that we can manage all this stuff until we had like GPUs that was initially made for games, and people repurposed it for AI calculation, because the GPU was streamlined to deal with data structures for textures and whatnot, but it's just using matrix math, which is the same thing. So then you kind of just made GPUs, or general purpose GPUs, that wasn't using specific, or wasn't expecting data structures that you use in 3D graphics, but just pure mathematical or pure matrix or linear algebra data structures. Anyways, with that being said, that was around the time they started exploring more technology or more AI techniques, because it was actually viable to actually practically make them. And one of them was creating chess, playing chess against real high masters and winning against them, right? So you probably heard about this, but a couple of things on this that we found out. AI uncovered strategies or uncovered strategic patterns that humans haven't explored. This going back to what I was mentioning, let's say for trends, something works, everyone just double downs, keep doing that one thing. And then you'll hear experts say, if you try to deviate from a trend or what's working, they say don't do that, right? So similar to professionals in other industries or other fields such as chess, what was happening here is that the AI was studying these patterns, or basically AI studied the current patterns and then was willing to try other patterns that humans weren't considering. And you could see that over here, it was obtaining superhuman performance because the study had always been done before. But what this also meant was that it had opportunity for human knowledge to improve human expert by performing and leveraging hidden knowledge. When you say hidden knowledge, basically studying strategies that you would deem not good strategies, so people wouldn't explore it. That's what experts would say, oh, that's not a good strategy, don't go down that rat. What AI was pretty good at was just trying out a whole bunch of things that humans weren't trying and discovered new patterns that could work. So by studying these patterns, human players accelerated their growth and their strategic depth. And you could see that here. So you could see right here, it says Alpha 0, that was for the chess here, may encode knowledge that extends beyond the existing human knowledge. Basically, it's trying out patterns and trying out strategies that humans weren't trying. But that knowledge is ultimately not beyond human grasp. Seeing that, basically you're saying is that they're trying out things that humans weren't trying and discovered stuff, but that doesn't mean that humans couldn't understand it, right? So it can be successfully learned from. This goes back to an earlier video where I was talking about, where let's say we learned a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Well, we had like Pythagoras go and spend a lot of years of his life, and he's an expert in that field, to discover that. So a lot of that went, his depth and knowledge and his dedication in mathematics, it extends beyond most humans, just because we don't study that, right? We don't go and explore that on our day-to-day. But that doesn't mean that knowledge is not beyond our grasp, because once we've discovered that a squared plus b squared equals c squared, we teach that in an afternoon to our elementary and primary school kids. So this concept we've been using it for years. That's what, these papers, these professionals, PhDs, and they're contributing by exploring things, learning things very deep, and then bringing back the extracting the knowledge from that and teaching the rest of us. So this presented here, this was, in this case, was shared with top human grandmasters and improved their performance in solving certain chess positions, right? So, but what this was an important milestone, just like how our professionals in our fields or experts in our fields spend and dedicate their lives to discover things that we now could leverage. Now we have, smartphones and our technology, and we have internet, and everyone's connected. All that's basically by standing on shoulders of giants who spend their time discovering these things so we don't have to. So we're pretty much born into that, right? But with this is an important milestone because it's advancing the frontier of human knowledge by leveraging an AI. So now AI is exploring things that we haven't explored, and then we're coming back and bringing back with that knowledge, right? So that's one of the major benefits of using AI, and this is what companies are currently doing, is that you're exploring a solution landscape that we just haven't explored, we just haven't done yet, and AI is able to do that and bring back useful information. And this is just another example. So Go players. So Go is another game you see here that is statistically more difficult than chess because of the possibilities in there. So AI victories in Go inspired better human gameplay. So same idea, famed AI wins in Go let human players rethink their moves in a whole new way. So you might think, oh, AI is getting smarter than us, but here's the thing. These top Go players are embracing alien, quote unquote, alien moves, right? What happens, the key takeaways from, you could read this article again. You go to this link. and you could look up. It's from the Scientific American. The other one was I said Cornell University. You could look up the academic paper for that was published, but you could look up a Scientific American, right, and look up this title. So the key takeaways from it, though, again, AI introduced unexpected moves humans previously dismissed. Again, we weren't thinking of things. This is not how we approach the game. So if you're taught never do that, and then you're like, okay, never do that, that's a bad strategy. AI wasn't afraid and embraced that and just went and started trying these other things and explored new territories, new solutions. So, and this, humans previously dismissed it. You're like, oh, that's a bad path, don't go that way. Studying these helped humans, they rethink their opening strategies, their mid-game strategies. So Go players, again, are embracing these alien moves, AI alien moves. You're like, why are you doing this? And the thing is that it's able to analyze 5.8 million human-played moves since it was created, it's mentioned in here, since 1950 to 2021 at the time. And, it was able to study what's already known, and that's how it got its victories. And then it was able to explore new strategies, and human players started adopting these novel strategies early in the game. They're like, oh, that's how you get better. In fact, adversarial AI is designed to have one agent trying to solve a problem, and then another agent trying to defeat that agent, and then that agent is now trying to defeat that one. So it's at competition, they say iron sharpens iron. So by having the AI explore new things, it helped it adopt human players by seeing things in a different way. Now, these are two examples in AI, and these are what actively every major studio is trying to do, is trying to explore things and try to improve it. But I want to point out that, introducing new alien moves or new ideas that previously humans wouldn't even these are uncharted territories that humans wouldn't even explore, or they'll dismiss them just because it seems like a bad path. And again, in exploring something, it always takes time, money, and resources to bring something out, right? So if you don't have that, why would someone just go randomly explore things in an area that there's no indication that you learn anything? AI is able to do that. But I brought up the example that Pythagoras, and we have our PhDs and our people are exploring territories, and once we've discovered something, then we bring it back to the humans, like a squared plus b squared equals c squared. That was, when I say humans, I mean to the rest of humanity, that these guys dedicated, and they find some discovery that we all could use. This idea is not new. We're just using AI to do that now to help us. But this could be seen in all areas. So if we take it to sports, right? If we were in America, North America, well, actually now I guess worldwide, since what he's done in the Olympics recently, right? The all-time three-point leader, Steph Curry, right? Now the thing is about him is that to this day, even he himself, I think, admits that if he were to teach someone how to shoot three-pointers, it wouldn't be his style, right? Steph Curry and basketball, right? For decades, basketball strategy was attacking the paint, basically get inside the three-point line, get as close to the basket as possible, and then, or if it's too crowded there, have a mid-range game. So if you watch basketball in the mid-90s, during like Michael Jordan era, that was the game. Shooting three-pointers was a bad idea because it's uncontested, especially if down there you have the defense. If you miss, which is a high likelihood, then the defense will get the ball and you lose possession, right? So now the thing is about that, if you think about it, there's nothing in the rule set of basketball saying you cannot take the basketball and as soon as you get the ball full court, shoot the ball full court. There's nothing against the rules, but you don't see people employ that strategy because it's considered a bad strategy. It's a bad idea, right? But there's nothing against the rules of that. But if you look, I guarantee you could go in your library now and look up any books explaining how to play the basketball games, the fundamentals of basketball. None of them, I'd probably up until now, but for sure anything before 2000, the year 2000, none of them will tell you shoot the ball at full court. There's no strategy that would say shoot the ball at full court, even at half court, right? And questionably, even at the 3-point, right? But for sure, I would bet like probably 100% of the books, I will say that high, that no one says shoot at a full court or half court. There's no strategy that says that, right? However, Steph Curry is draining shots from half court. And this was considered reckless, low percentage, right? But he was consistently doing this, right? He reshaped the entire game because it showed that doing a strategy, it was not against the rules. He just explored a solution set that no one explored before because it was considered low percentage reckless. Don't even consider that. But he showed that he could be proficient at it, and it totally lopsided the team because there's no defense against it. There's no way there's no strategy against it because no one thought of you could do that, right? No one believed that was an idea that anyone ever explored, so you just ignore that path. So because of that, teams changed their defenses to now incorporate that. The spacing of the court has shifted. Now not everyone's just crowding the paint or under the basket or just a mid-range. Now you have to cover that whole space up until the half court because of this one man. Steph Curry showed that it was possible, and he's doing consistently, right? I wouldn't be surprised in the not so near futures, people could shoot full court, right? And that will change again. And now the spacing of the whole game would probably change. And it might sound far-fetched now. I mean, shooting half court would sound far-fetched until like a decade ago, until he showed it, right? So if we start seeing basketball and people start shooting full court, remember I predicted that first on this video, right? So teams change their defenses. The spacing of the court shifted. Three-pointer became the most powerful weapon now. Everybody shoots three-pointers now. So as you can see, we gave the example in AI. It explored new solution spaces in chess, and then now expert chess players are adopting these strategies, and which means that the general public, and if you go to your chess club now, it's probably going to start using strategies that were deemed not good strategies because AI explored them, and grandmasters of this kind of like, co-signed it. Same thing in Go. They're now embracing AI alien moves, just like, and as well in sports and basketball, where everybody, the whole world, as you saw in the Olympics as well, he did it on the final shot as well. Everybody's embracing these alien moves now, right? All because you're willing to explore new uncharted territories. And that's what I'm saying, how AI can make you a better 3D artist by doing that, exploring that uncharted areas in art as well, that could give you inspired new ideas that people haven't thought of or artists haven't thought of before. And you can do it at a much faster rate and come up with new ideas so you could just create. So often, suggest bad or inconvenient moves, but that humans dismiss, but AI is willing to try it out, and you might find a diamond in the rough with that. Quick heads up for all you 3D artists watching this. If you've been grinding away at tutorials and YouTube videos but still feel stuck, I've got something special for you. I'm hosting a 3D character rapid bootcamp workshop where I'll walk you step by step through the exact skills studios actually hire for. It's not theory. This is the stuff that got me hired and working in the industry. If you want to finally build a portfolio that gets callbacks and interviews, hit the link below and grab your spot. Seats are limited, so if you're serious about going pro, this is your chance. So to recap, AI didn't replace me. It supercharged me, right? It gave me a faster workflows, better concept, made my fundamentals sharper. So in production, I mentioned this before, that in a real project, what we do is the first thing you do is actually do pre-production. This is before we hire out the team, and this is usually what the seniors, the leads, the directors, a lot of my friends now, I just communicated with some of them even this week. They're starting new positions at major companies that you know of. Some of them I just mentioned over here. Some of these mentioned that over here, right? That I've been at. They're basically developing their titles, or basically developing their pipelines, new pipeline. They're like, okay, we want to build out our new VFX pipeline, or there might be a VFX house that they never did feature animation before, so we want to build that out. So we need someone who has a lot of experience, that has all the fundamentals here, right? But they want them to build out workflows, pipelines, better concepts, how we could do that fast, and then how we're going to hire the team who are going to be the leads of these projects. What are the timelines for it? All these things happen in pre-production, right? And we figure out and scope the project and what the pipeline we need and the team that we need, and then we hire them up, and then you go into production. Because in production, you just start using these tools. So AI helps a lot with all this stuff. When you build it up, you're like, we're trying to figure these things out. Let's test it out and let's figure how we could use these things, right? So the next step, you want to start small. You want to experiment with one AI tool in your current workflow and see how it boosts your results. Don't try to do everything at once. AI, basically, you want to integrate AI like you would any new tool or plugin, one step at a time, and see, okay, this is how he's doing it before. Let me try this tool. Does it improve it, right? And here's a bonus tip. Use AI for exploration, not execution, right? I mentioned it before. When we are trying new things, when we are doing pre-production to want to build out the pipeline and could we bring this en masse, you still have to know your fundamentals. But once you do it, how could we batch that, or how we could use AI tools to do a lot of the repetitive tasks? If we have to make a lot of textures, can we use AI to generate like procedural textures for like a rock pattern or something like that, or to create high frequency details for it that we don't have to spend a lot of money or build very fancy machines for. It's the spark to fuel your creativity, not the final product. And I'll give an example of exploration, because in production we still do that, and especially in art, both in movies and films and games, movies, VFX, feature animation in games. We've always been doing that. AI just helps us a lot faster. So an example I want to give here, a famous game franchise, Final Fantasy, during the Nintendo NES days, they had Final Fantasy 1, which came out, 1987 or something like that. And then they did all the way up to 6 by, I think, mid 1993, 4, 5, something like that. But back then they were using sprites. So the original NES, or Nintendo Entertainment System, or Famicom if you're in Japan, family computer, I guess, because Nintendo was, back then video games were considered bad because of the Atari whole hoopla there. So Nintendo was trying to position it as like a toy. That's why it's called family computer. But anyways, or Famicom, that's besides the point. During that era, Nintendo was pretty much like the king of video games. They were doing pixel or sprites, right? So everything was 2D. And again, and then we had 8-bit era, then the 16-bit era, where Final Fantasy VI was on, at that time, still is considered like arguably the best of the franchise. Again, not the point of this video, but about that is that these studios, every time they make a new version or a new title, especially with their flagship titles, they want to innovate. They want to bring something new, right? That's the art in us. If we just keep recreating the same thing over and over and over, it's nothing new. We're not adding to it. So that's what we were trying to do, and we built technology to support that. So back then, during that time period, from Final Fantasy VI, from Sprite, which got great reviews, it's an amazing game. And for Final Fantasy VII, they want to go to 3D. This is around the PlayStation 1, Nintendo 64 era. But remember, this is brand new. No studio knew how to work in 3D. So for them to test it, they were doing proof of concepts, or POCs, right? Because you need to test during pre-productions, or to see if it's even viable to go this route. We have to test out to see if A, can we even do it? B, can we do it within the target resources? And C, can we make it commercially viable, like cheap enough that we can produce it and put it out there, get it done in time, and make a profit, margin off of all that, right? So the thing is, Final Fantasy VII, which they're working on, wasn't even created yet. It's a concept. They want to pitch that, okay, we're going to make this new game. We want to make it kind of more futuristic, dystopia, whatever art direction they want to go in, or the direction of the story, or whatever they want to go in. It wasn't developed yet. But they knew they also want to explore new technology. But how do you test it if you don't have any of the assets or the story's already done yet? So what they did is, we already finished and we did all that work for Final Fantasy VI, and it's already developed. We already have the characters, we already have the enemies for it, we already have the story, we already have their type of the battle system. Let's just take that and just make that in 3D and see what it takes to do that. And they presented this to SIGGRAPH in 1995 in LA. A lot of times SIGGRAPH is in LA. And especially back then, a lot of new technology every year, something was introduced with that. But long story short, they introduced that, they were able to test it out. And back then, remember 3D is new, right? So you had to use silicon graphics ink, machines, and these were new at the time, SGI machines. It wasn't on desktop, right? And they used Alias Power Animator, which later became Alias Maya, which then Autodesk purchased or acquired. So now Autodesk Maya that we know now, that's the industry standard. This is the precursor. This is how it started out. And this is also why Maya is still the industry standard till this day. Not because it's the best, it's just because the industry has been developing and the cutting edge, and has been integrated in all major projects for the last 30 years. You can't just snap your fingers and switch out your entire pipeline, because every studio built around that technology. You spend millions and millions, probably at this point billions of dollars around their pipeline around this. You can't just take it out and put it in. That's why this is another reason why people ask, why don't you start using Blender? It's not as simple as that. You literally have to rip out your entire technology stack and replace everything from scratch to go build it back out, because of look how far back the technology has been rooted in, right? So anyways, so that was done. And animation was done in Softimage at the time. Again, that was cutting edge. Again, that was purchased by Microsoft, and then purchased back, and then it could be renamed to Softimage XSI, and then Autodesk got it, and then acquired it. Then they renamed it to Autodesk Softimage again. Side story, but the whole idea behind this is that they were able to now explore new territories into 3D. And they're able to do that because they needed assets that are going to be comparable to what they're going to be doing, but they haven't done it yet, right? And nowadays, now we can start doing that with AI. We're like, okay, we're going to create these type of a game. Now we could create proximities to give you an idea of what it would be. And then we could do a vertical slice, or stress test this, so we could scope it out. So by doing this at the end, they're like, okay, this was in real time. We realized what it took to make this. It takes about 20 megabytes, which was a lot back then. Again, you can read this article. This is from the Final Fantasy fandom wiki, but it was well documented. You could find a lot of articles on this created. During my time period, I used to buy, I was living during this time when this was happening, right? So I used to buy video game magazines, and was following it as they announced the new Final Fantasy, and then they were doing the test demo, and they showed it on the Nintendo 64. And then they realized, technologically wise, we were able to build it out and show the demo. But I mentioned this before in programming, it's not just, okay, we just make a beautiful art and we could do it, and then, we could sell it out there. No, we actually have to stress test it under real circumstances, the limitations of the next generation consoles, the PlayStation, the Nintendo 64. What does it cost to produce one of these? What is the computation power of the processor? What is the memory? How much ROM or random read-only memory or stored memory can you hold that you could produce, that we could make, that we could put on there? How fast could you get that into RAM or random access memory? And how fast could you load? All that matters, because you have to design the game as well to make sure that it feels real time. You don't have long loading screens. And when you do have everything, it has to calculate. In this case, the demo is running at 15 frames per second, 15 FPS, which means that you have 1/15 of a second to calculate everything. That means graphics, animation, load the world, the AI, not the AI we're talking about here, but the AI of the logic of the enemies, or of the world, the physics in there, the graphics, the lighting, all that stuff has to be calculated at 1/60 of a second. Plus, keep track of the player, the input to the controller, rendering this the image, putting on the screen, and keeping state of the world, of your save states, where you are in the game. All that stuff has to be calculated in 1/15 of a second and produce it. So if you can't balance all these out in a real scenario, you can't make the game. So it's not just, okay, you just make an art and it's fine. These tests matter. Doing these proof of concepts matter. Doing And AI will help you generate these things to test out how viable it is. And that's what we do in pre-production. And this is why knowing your fundamentals plus knowing these tools will allow you to become higher in the industry, as opposed to if you just do ArtStation. Look, I can make a pretty character. Yeah, but can you actually make it viable for a real project, for the current state of games? Or if we're doing it for mobile games, not the same requirements for if we're doing it for PlayStation 5 or we're doing a AAA game for PC, or if we're doing a VFX where we have offline rendering, or if we're trying to do it on Unreal, or if we're doing a feature animation. Like, you have to, these things matter a lot because you spend a lot of time in pre-production trying to figure out these things out. And at the end, what you get is data. You figure out, okay, and at the end, in this case, they said, okay, 20 megabytes to build this out. This was a real-time demo. We created all this with cutting-edge technology at the time, SGI systems, and we're using cutting-edge software at the time. And they deemed, you know what, it was very, at the time, this was state-of-the-art graphics in real time. This was shown in real time, interactively, on real time, right? And they said, okay, you know what, to do this commercially and release all these games, it was very clear that we cannot put it on a cartridge. It costs too much. It's not too much memory. It would take too long to load. So we're going to do everything on CD-ROM. This is why, in the end, Final Fantasy VII was on 3 CD-ROM discs, because they had to figure this out. And this showed that you couldn't do it, and that they had to come up with a solution with that. And they went with that direction. The other thing about it was that they weren't the scope of the game, or they wanted to do with the story, judging how much the art or judging how much the science or the technology at the time could support the art. They had to, again, I could show the same thing again over here. Time, time, money, and quality, right? This is a perfect example of that, is that, okay, given the amount of time we have, the money and the quality, where you say money, you could actually replace this with resources, that they know we can make this, but can we produce this reliably on the Nintendo 64 or on the PlayStation? So no, we can't go that high a quality of it, given, well, I say money, but resources, because we just technically can't. So we have to reduce the scope of what the final projects or what the final assets would be. And that's why in Final Fantasy VII, when they finally did create the real-time versions of it, they decided to do very simple polygonal characters that were vertex colored and not texture unwrapped. In Final Fantasy VIII, once they finished Final Fantasy VII, they realized, okay, how far they could push the system. So that's why in Final Fantasy VIII, the characters had more textures, they looked more human-like in terms of proportions. But in 7, a lot of times when we have a limitation, we call it a style, right? Or in programming, we say, like, if that's a bug, no, that's a feature, right? It's we use our limitation to be creative. Like, creativity comes from limitation, right? So they use that to scope out, and they said, okay, wait, this real-time demo, we cannot make an entire game with that, because we have to balance all the other things, all the other systems that has to be done. So we can't do that. What we can do, and also it was clear that with our targeted hardware, we can't do it on cartridge. It's too expensive to make, just logistically to handle everything. Again, when you're dealing with programming, you always look at the big O. What is the time complexity? What's the space complexity, time complexity? How long algorithms will take to calculate or go through to calculate all the steps? And that not necessarily just the speed of the CPU, just actually through the steps before, like, a hardware acceleration. And then the other is space complexity, how much memory this takes up, right? So all those stuff also on the sideline were being discovered to support all these things, right? So what this gave as an output is that, okay, well, this was cool as a demo. We showed everybody this, but it's impossible to sustain an entire game with that. It's too much resources, too specialized. So we're going to reduce the scope, but we can still leverage this, because we'll use this to make full motion videos out of this, which they showed here. Which, if you were at the time, maybe I could undo that and show. I'll highlight it here. For the full motion videos here at the time, if you were at the time of, like, the PlayStation 1 era, PSX era, you'll hear games with FMVs. That's full motion videos. that was like how we got, at the time, realistic looking movie-like graphics because of this experiment showing that, okay, well, we could pre-render this, make it a movie that will play it in the game. So we'll have a cutscene that plays a full motion movie. So all this one demo had a huge impact of what the final product would be, and all because they were exploring what would be possible. Nowadays, we would use AI to do all this exploration to basically come up in a pre-production, our strategy, what the production will be. Because in production, you're not trying to figure any of this stuff out. You're just executing, right? And exploration happens regardless. It's been happening. It's still been happening. AI just helps with this part. And this is why I'm mentioning that if you want to advance in this industry as a career, you have to understand this process, is that to scope out and figure out how we're going to build a project is way more important, right? Or way more important to companies. And then you're like, okay, we know how to do it. Based on that limitation, that will dictate what art you could do, right? Within that limitation. Yes, you have to be good at art and know the fundamentals. That's why having that balance will put you ahead of things. But just having a great looking demo reel or an art station or Instagram page or account and showing just a pretty pictures is not going to get you the job or further your career. Because even if you do have great pictures, you might have one or two hero shots in a game or a movie or whatnot, but most of the work is figure out this stuff, right? And if you could manage all this stuff, you'll be way, way more valuable and companies will come out to you, right? So now I just want to mention the biggest mistake. Again, don't rely on AI to do the art for you, right? Don't skip the fundamentals. If you skip it, your work will just be bland like everyone else. And the real edge comes from combining your artistic eye with AI speed. As I showed this example, this is an older example, but you want to explore what can be done. And so that's nowadays you could use AI to explore and scope a project into pre-production and then present, this is how we're going to do it. This is the team we're going to build. These are the resources we need. And this is how we're going to hit our target on time, with the quality, and this is the quality and the style that we could use. And that's when you start using the fundamentals, is within this limitation, this is what we could output reliably. Because again, technology is to support the art, and creativity comes from a limitation.